Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we are going to be talking about something that we have all been waiting for so very long, and that is the Obi-Wan Kenobi series on Disney Plus, starring Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen and Kumail Nanjiani and Moses Ingram and Joel Edgerton and just so many great people. I love these first two episodes, so I'm going to get right into this with spoilers. So if you guys have not seen the first two episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi, we're going to be talking about it today. And if you guys are excited about this show, definitely subscribe because I'll have weekly reviews for every single episode as they come out for the next 4 weeks. But without further ado, let's just jump right into this episode, starting with episode 1, which is basically just a massive character piece for Obi-Wan, with Ewan McGregor being just so great in this role as always. And he's kind of a curmudgeon like somebody was in The Last Jedi, but the benefits of it being a series is that you can dive into this character and really take your time on exploring his psyche, his place that he's at. And since we saw the prequels and we saw that build up with Anakin and that fall of Anakin and that blame that he puts on himself, it's just that much more impactful in this versus The Last Jedi. I'm even someone who loves The Last Jedi, but seeing him as this type of person who's really down and beaten and he's turning down helping all these people, this Jedi played by Benny Safdie is like, begging for his help essentially because he's on the run. He's brought the Inquisitors to Tatooine, which was a big question when we saw the trailers for the show, is why are these Inquisitors on Tatooine, and is Obi-Wan being chased by these Inquisitors at this time? If so, how is he going to get out of this? How do these Inquisitors know that he's on Tatooine and not suspect that somebody could be at Anakin's old home? But that's because they're after a completely different Jedi, and that is Benny Safdie's character, who gets subsequently murdered later on in this episode. That is kind of one more thing to push Obi-Wan into finally becoming somewhat, he's still hesitant, but somewhat worthy or wanting to actually try to help people in need of being helped. And the big thing about this episode that was the biggest surprise for me, at least, was how much time we spent on Alderaan with Senator Organa and of course Leia Organa and her mother. And spending all this time on Alderaan was so cool to see. This planet is gorgeous, and the way this show looks in general, the special effects and just the landscapes, especially on Alderaan, look amazing. Look straight out of episode 3, just the little glimpses that we saw of it on that. And I even remember the last time I rewatched the prequels saying, like, that planet is so beautiful, I'd want to spend some time on it. We're finally spending some time on it. And I will say that this child actress that got to play Leia sometimes is definitely a child actress, but I love her personality. I love the way that they wrote her character being so just like full of life and full of just like, running off into the woods and, trying to be more adventurous. She doesn't want to have that princess moniker on her name, even though she has aspects of herself where she's grabbing the clothes in episode 2, like, because she is a princess, she is royalty, and she's just that type of personality. But her character was so fun to follow. And if you guys don't know what this show is about, essentially, because nobody really knew what this show is about, it's about Leia Organa being kidnapped by these snatchers who are being, paid and being, told to do so by Reva, which is one of the Inquisitors in the show, a new character for the show. And her character is amazing. I actually really, really love the intensity that even the other Inquisitors are like, you are on another level. You need to try to kind of, bring it down a notch. And that's from an Inquisitor saying that. The Grand Inquisitor is really pissed at her because she is just so intense. She's not letting anybody have even a single ounce of hope or anything at all, and she is just so intense at all times, and I love her character for that. And I'm curious to see more backstory with this character because, like I said, her introduction in these first two episodes was really solid because of her intensity, because of her real serious wants to capture Kenobi. She has so much of a drive to get him, and I don't know if it's a personal vendetta, because as you see in the opening scene, you see Order 66, you see some kids trying to run away, and you see some Jedi trying to protect them. And honestly, that scene was kind of hard to watch, especially with some recent events here in the United States, which just, it was a tough scene to watch, to be completely honest. But seeing these kids run away, and that some of these people who survived Order 66, turned to the dark side and became Inquisitors. And so was she one of those kids? Was she, or a kid in the Jedi Temple when Anakin attacked? Or what did she have? Did she have some sort of relationship with Kenobi when he was still around? Is there some dynamic? Do they know each other? Why is she so driven to get him? Or is it just a simple fact that she wants to be held as a higher form of Inquisitor in the eyes of Darth Vader, which you hear her say later on in the episode? She wants to be the one to turn in Kenobi to Vader because of that, status that she'll get because of that. So is there something personal? Which I'm kind of hoping there is something personal with them, because that just makes her an even better villain. But if not, she's still a very intense and threatening and menacing person, because my gosh, she was phenomenal. You also do get Joel Edgerton as Uncle Owen in this show, returning from episode 3. Of course, he was cast, and of course, he later on goes to, get burnt to death in A New Hope. But seeing him here and seeing that dynamic between him and Obi-Wan, as we saw peeks and glimpses of in the trailer, were fun to see. And one of my favorite sequences in both of these episodes was definitely that scene where Reva is interrogating him and really threatening to go and kill his entire family if nobody speaks up saying where this Jedi is. And there's so many layers with this conflict because, for one, we know that Owen is taking care of Luke, who is the son of Darth Vader, of Anakin. And then of course, you have Obi-Wan off on the side. Owen just confronted him, and he could easily sell Obi-Wan, say he's just right over there, but of course he doesn't. He's still trying to hold on to that name. He says if Jedi came, he hates Jedi. If some sort of, rodent or some sort of rat came to his place, he would exterminate that, and that is his kind of stance on the Jedi. And he's not being completely dishonest. He kind of hates the fact that Obi-Wan was able to do these things and cause all this pain for his family, and putting all this responsibility and all this danger onto his family is something that is completely understandable, especially when you see how his character ends up. Him being a part and involved in this ends up getting Owen killed, so his skepticism and his hesitance is very warranted. And that just further shows where Obi-Wan is at this point. He's being fully called Ben Kenobi, which is great to see Ewan McGregor playing Ben Kenobi. He's reached another level in his journey of being Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I just, like I said earlier, I just love his character, his development from the beginning of that episode to the end of that episode when he sees Bail Organa come to kind of recruit him to save Leia. And so let's get into episode 2 now. The first episode was definitely a lot of character building. It was a little bit slower pace, but like I said, that building of these characters and that introduction of Reva and the Grand Inquisitor and all these different things in that episode was a very, very solid start, a very strong foundation for the 6-episode series. And moving on to episode 2, we have Obi-Wan going off planet immediately after he retrieved his lightsaber. He's going back on his adventure as a Jedi, and I actually really like this episode as well. I liked this planet that they were on. I believe it was called Daiyu, this planet of scum and villainy, this place where all these criminals go because a lot of signals are blocked, so you can't really communicate. It's a lot of secrets being held here. Obi-Wan is trying to be, somebody's trying to sell spice to him, some drugs to him. It's very much a pit of scum and villainy, as we are just shown in this episode. And of course, you are introduced to Kumail Nanjiani's character, which I absolutely loved his character. And I will say some of his humor, just a little bit of his humor, doesn't always land. I think that is pretty much as when you have any comedy in Star Wars, some of it lands, some of it doesn't. I liked part of his comedy, but for the most part, I really, really enjoyed his character being this guy who's essentially, he's technically helping people because he's saying that he's a Jedi. People come to him and he gives them like a route off the planet into safety. This one family's trying to get to Corellia, and so he does that. He has these magnets pulling these things up and down. He's lifting his thing with the Force, even though it's just some magnets, and then he's just scamming these people out of some credits. And I think that is a very, very interesting way to bring his character. He's definitely a red herring from the trailers where you think he is a Jedi, but no, he's just some dude that's trying to make his life on this planet in the only way that he can, in a very comedic way that of course only Kumail Nanjiani can pull off for the most part. But I really did enjoy his character, and of course when you have Obi-Wan coming to him, he has some information where he can get him to possibly find Leia. And this episode is much more action-packed, much more active in terms of Obi-Wan going after Leia, trying to find her. Once he does find her, trying to escape this planet. And I will say one thing that I found a little bit odd about the choreography and the fights in the show as of this point, but there's a few moments, especially in the first episode, where these kidnappers are trying to grab Leia, where they just seem like they're very slow to try to capture her. Maybe just because you're dealing with a child actor, but there's some times where it looks like they can easily just like lean down and grab her, and they don't. And when Leia runs away from Obi-Wan in this episode, there's clearly a moment where he can just like literally just grab her and just like, dude, what are you doing? You're letting this little girl just run around here and like duck between these little small places and getting away. But either way, that's neither here nor there. I did enjoy the dynamic between Leia and Obi-Wan in this episode because she just does not trust him. She was literally just kidnapped. Her little droid was destroyed, which is a tragic moment in her very short life, her 10 years of life. That must be the most devastating thing that's happened to her. And she's just on the street with this random guy who says he's a Jedi, but she just does not trust anybody because of what is happening, rightfully so. And when she runs off and Obi-Wan is trying to get her, that is such a fun sequence because there's so many converging things. All these bounty hunters have been aware that Obi-Wan is on this planet, that they're now looking for him because of Reva. The Grand Inquisitor and all these other Inquisitors are trying to find, trying to basically stop Reva from doing what she's doing, but also trying to capture Kenobi for themselves. They're kind of guarding the spaceports, and you have Kumail Nanjiani have a change of heart essentially after you think he's also coming after him because he sees the bounty and how much credits he can possibly get, but he does a good thing by not completely selling them out, even though Reva essentially is able to get their location from his mind. But again, I think this episode, in terms of the action, in terms of the I guess pacing of this episode, was really fast paced and really fun. I think that is what I want to hammer home with the second episode. You get to have the dynamic between Leia and Obi-Wan, which is very solid, which does lend a lot to when Leia says, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. This is kind of why this is the beginning of their relationship. This is the beginning of them knowing each other. And I think, when you have a prequel, you have these type of moments where you can build these character arcs to make things make sense when you get to the original trilogy. And after 2 episodes, we still do not have Obi-Wan fighting with his lightsaber, but he has a couple cool blaster fights that's completely uncivilized, but of course he's just doing his thing. And once they're able to escape, Reva does something probably the most controversial in terms of these first 2 episodes, which I think I've already seen some discourse on Twitter about this, some people being skeptical, because Reva, when she's confronted by the Grand Inquisitor saying that he will be the one to turn her in to Vader, she just straight up stabs him with her lightsaber, and he's seemingly dead. And of course we know the Grand Inquisitor shows up in Star Wars Rebels, which takes place after this point, and I think even the Grand Inquisitor kind of dies like a chump in that show. I have not finished Rebels, but I finished like the first season and a half, and I'm pretty sure he already died at the end of season 1. I could be mistaken. Can somebody just clarify for me in the comments? I'm probably going to start watching Rebels while I'm waiting for this next episode just to get a little more grasp on the Grand Inquisitor, but I don't remember him being too much more menacing because that show is a lot more kiddie than, say, Clone Wars was at the end of the Clone Wars' run, and I think he just kind of died in a very easy manner, and I could be mistaken. I could just, not be remembering it right, but I really don't care about his look, and I have 2 possible things for why they did this. One, he could just simply still be alive. It's Star Wars. Darth Maul was literally cut in half and fell down a pit, and he's still alive at this point in the Star Wars canon. So, Darth Maul is still running around doing his thing. So, of course, the Grand Inquisitor is most likely still alive. Or maybe the Grand Inquisitor is just a moniker that you give to certain people. Maybe another Inquisitor from the same species that is kind of the same character eventually comes back, and he has that look that people like, because I know a lot of people are complaining about his look, but I did think his performance was intimidating up until this point, and a red herring, you take him out, and now you just focus straight up on Reva, which you've already built her character to be a lot more menacing than the Inquisitor, or than the Grand Inquisitor at this point. So I honestly don't really mind. I'm sure he's alive, and he's just going to be, kind of on the sidelines for the rest of the season, but he's the type of villain where you can't really do much with him because we know where his character goes. So when you have Reva as a villain, you have some unexpected turns that you can take her character instead. So honestly, I'm on board with this. And the last thing I want to talk about for these first 2 episodes is, of course, John Williams' theme for Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is something that he said that he never got to do. He never made a theme for Obi-Wan because that just never ended up becoming a thing. You have a theme for Solo in Solo Star Wars Story, which is a great theme. I love John Williams' music. And of course, I think it was John Powell who did the rest of the score for that movie. And of course, you have John Williams doing the score, or at least the theme for Obi-Wan in this show, with Natalie Holt of Loki fame doing the rest of the score. And honestly, I really, really, really love Obi-Wan's theme in this. Although, I'm not sure if anybody else picked this up, but it kind of sounds like the Spider-Man PS4 theme. Just take a listen to both of them next time you have a chance. Just listen both of them back to back. They're kind of the exact same theme, but I don't care. It's been stuck in my head all day since that panel at Star Wars Celebration. And so just overall, my thoughts on these first 2 episodes is what a start for this. Of course, I gave a little teaser for Darth Vader for the next episode, and we've pretty much seen everything from the trailers. If I'm not mistaken, the rest of the 4 episodes, we have no concept of where they're going to go. The only planets they really showed in the trailers, the base where the Inquisitors are with the water place, we have not seen that yet, but everything else we saw. Of course, the Daiyu planet, we have already been to Tatooine, we already did all this stuff with Uncle Owen that we've seen from the trailers so far, so everything from here on out is pretty much uncharted territory, and I cannot wait until the next episode to just kind of keep on watching this as it goes along. So like I said, if you enjoyed this video and you like this channel, make sure you guys subscribe and leave a like on this video. Comment down below what you think of of, tell me about the Grand Inquisitor. I need to know more about him. I need to catch up on my Rebels knowledge, my Rebels canon, just to kind of wrap my head around that moment. So comment down below what you thought of this show in general, just general thoughts. I'd love to hear everything you guys have to say. So thanks everybody for watching this video, and I hope to see you all in my next one.